Hi, I'm Cassandra.
And I'm Kate.
And we are part of the cultural engagement team at Central Bedfordshire Council.
This is Story Search, where we share stories of arts, culture, community and heritage from across Central Bedfordshire.
I'll share it with you. 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 I'll share it with you.
Story Search, celebrating arts and culture across Central Bedfordshire. How do you feel about having a theatre in your local area? And the fact that you've never been to it before. Why have you never been, do you think?
But when you're acting, you can become that person. And that can be quite a freeing experience.
I'm one of probably about half a dozen members that we know of that are on the autistic spectrum. It's sometimes a way of seeing things. You see solutions to problems that others may not consider.
It's just so manic. Like, people are in the way of each other, and when you're like, move out the way, please, I'm on stage in a minute, they're like, hang on, I'm just doing my makeup. It's like,
I've gone to watch things with TADS and some of the other local groups that I would never have watched if a local group wasn't doing it. But I've gone either to support people or just support the group and been blown away by some of the fantastic performances that I've seen.
It's a community. We are a community theatre group.
Story Search, Central Bedfordshire.
We are talking to a variety of people from the world of local theatre here in Central Bedfordshire. Firstly, David and Paul, who work hard to help run TADS Theatre in Toddington. They give us an insight into the wonder and the challenges of creating a theatre experience for our community to enjoy. We will be talking to Angel, an 11-year-old actor, about what it's like to put yourself out there and get involved, and she shares some backstage secrets with us. We have a chat with Gemma, Angel's mum, on how she ended up unexpectedly participating. And also, because I live right around the corner from a small theatre, I thought I would take my daughter Naya to a performance. It's the first time she and I have ever been to an amateur theatre show, amateur production, and we give our honest thoughts on what it's like to see a local theatre production and whether it's worth other people buying a ticket and seeing a show as well.
Story Search, Central Bedfordshire.
Hi Cassandra.
Hi Kate.
So today we are going on our search of the stories of Central Bedfordshire to a new location, Toddington. So I had no idea that Toddington had a theatre, and you've asked me to meet you down a side street off the high street of Toddington, in a what looks like a very, suburban street. And actually I've come inside what looks like a house and found this tiny black box theatre.
So this theatre is on Conga Lane and has a long history of being somewhere where people would come to enjoy themselves. Originally it was a cinema, actually, many years ago, and I've explored some of the history of this theatre through a book called Toddington Through the Ages by David Buckingham. And anybody who's particularly interested in the history of Toddington, or the theatre, I suppose, is welcome to go to Toddington Library, which is just near the theatre, and have a look in the local studies section where they'll find more information about the village.
Well, I can't wait to find out more.
Wonderful.
Well, my name is David Sachon. I'm a life vice president of TADS Theatre Group. I've been in the group since the late 1960s, would you believe? So I think I'm probably the oldest member of the group.
David, thank you for welcoming us here to TADS Theatre to talk a little bit about local theatre, its importance within Central Bedfordshire, and particularly this special venue in Toddington. What does TADS stand for?
Well, it began life as Toddington Amateur Dramatic Society, of course. But then some time later we decided that TADS Theatre Group sounded, can we say, a little more professional, because in those days we were performing across the road at Parkfield School, a much, much bigger venue, and we were putting on fairly substantial productions at the time, and we thought the name change gave us a little more gravitas.
Did you start off in the performance side?
Yes, very much so. My first performance was in 1971, a play called I'll Get My Man. Like most amateur theatre companies, finding young men is quite difficult. So when I joined the group, I was invited to by some people who originally started the group over a dinner party. So wine flowed, I think, and they asked me, because they were looking for young men, if I would participate. And I said, yes, all right. I hadn't done anything like this since I left school. And so, yep, that was my first performance with I'll Get My Man.
And is it easier to find young people to participate today?
I don't think so, because young people seem to have so many more things that take up their leisure time. Personally, I think the business of social media, or they're constantly looking at phones and things like that, I think they miss out on the very fun interaction people do have when they come together in a performance space. It allows them to use their imaginations. It also gives them the opportunity of meeting people one-to-one and actually getting to know each other rather than disconnected way. This is an older person's view of it through social media and phones and the computer. It's an old-fashioned way of looking at it, but I think it's relevant.
We've discussed similar themes actually in our Dunstable episode, where we were talking a lot about the importance of live music and being at performances, and how, you know, music and how we consume it has changed. So it's interesting that you're picking up on a similar theme there. You know, what do you think people get out of being part of this?
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess the primary thing is that sometimes if you are nervous and you come along and you are prepared just to get stuck in, that's what TADS has always encouraged people to do. Just come along, have a go. We're friendly, we're welcoming, there's no pressure. We're not expecting you to be the next Laurence Olivier or whatever. But as on an individual basis, sometimes when you're performing, it means that you can put on a skin, a new skin, and be somebody that under normal circumstances you would never in a million years think you could be. But when you're acting, you can become that person. And that can be quite a freeing experience.
And actually, I am not an actor, but I am a reader. And everything you've just mentioned reminds me of getting lost in a story. You're next door to Toddington Library here, just down the road. And I feel a similar experience in reading and taking out a library book and getting lost in that character. Takes you somewhere else. We've talked a lot about the performer and what the performer could get out of the experience, but what do you think it brings to the community and the audiences?
One hopes that the local community are happy. TADS Theatre Group tries to keep live theatre alive in Toddington. We think that's very important because it gives the local community an opportunity of appreciating the talent that is manifest within the community. It's a strange thing, even within Toddington, there are still people who don't know, who never visited us. We never understood quite why over all these years. But when people do come down and they've never seen us before, they usually walk away and say, wow, we had no idea we had a proper functioning, successful little theatre within our own community.
I am going to be attending one of your shows called Broadway Through the Ages soon, and I'm excited to experience that. I'm wondering, what can I expect?
Looking back on previous musical productions, you will see good choreography. Hopefully you will hear fine voices, excellent lighting, of course, great costumes. It should be a fun evening's entertainment.
So, David, we've talked about this sense of community and this idea of feeling part of something and it being a family. And it literally for you, is a family experience because you work with your wife and you met your wife through TADS. Is that correct?
Yes, indeed. I can't remember the name of the production, but I was directing it, and I had to put an advert in the paper. Women wanted. Susan rang me up and asked me all about it. We arranged to meet by the phone box, which is in Leighton Road. Introduced myself. She came along. She auditioned. She didn't get the part, but she was so nice. I asked her out to dinner, and history is now fulfilled. She's been my wife we've just had our 35th wedding anniversary.
Wonderful.
And we've been in TADS for all those years.
Story Search, Central Bedfordshire.
I'm Paul Horsler. I'm currently the Secretary for TADS Theatre Group in Toddington. That role is quite wide-ranging, but I also look after the premises, the technical, and generally any other job that needs doing within the theatre. You can find us at tadstheatre.org or on Facebook as TADS Theatre Group.
So, Paul, lovely to meet you here at TADS Theatre in Toddington, Bedfordshire, Central Bedfordshire. Can you tell us a little bit more about your role and what it is you are involved in with this local theatre?
Yeah, I'm Paul Horsler. I'm currently the Group Secretary for TADS Theatre, but also look after the premises and the sound and lighting within the theatre. The role is very varied. From the Secretary's role, obviously, is for taking the minutes. I have the added bonus of I also have historical interests, so I'm currently working through the group's archive, which most of it is now digitised, and on our Facebook site in terms of the photos. My other roles is keeping the premises running, making sure everything's up to date, all our licenses, etc, etc.
So you were talking about handling the archives and keeping hold of those. I have been reading a book that I took out from Toddington Library, and it's called Toddington Through the Ages by David Buckingham. And in there is a full section about the history of this venue. And it talks about it being a cinema for a long time. Do your archives go back that far?
Ours don't, because the cinema closed in 1958, the late 50s, when it became the Church Hall. The group actually came into existence in late autumn 1960 as a result of, I believe, an adult education class, because the tutor belonged to Dunstable Rep, and he encouraged them to form the group. So you have the group of actors.
And it's been a theatre space for the local community since?
No, it moved after the cinema closed. It transferred to the church as the Church Hall, and it was the Church Hall until the late 1980s, early 1990s, when they built, I believe, the Wilkinson Hall, and the hall came on the market in 91, 92, and at the time the group had enough money in the account to put down the deposit and take out the mortgage, and that was largely through the work of our first director, Don Harper, that pushed that through the group, and they set about converting the space into a bit more of a theatre space, which is hence why the boards on the floor, if you look at the stage, run different ways, because they raised the floor initially when they moved in.
It's interesting you talk about the boards on the floor because we're actually here in the theatre recording this, and I was wondering if you could sort of walk the listener through what we're seeing, the capacity and the venue itself. Can you tell us a bit about the venue?
Can do, yep. We open onto Conga Lane. We're about halfway down, so just down from the library car park. So you'd come into the front entrance, small foyer area, lobby, and then you come into the main auditorium in the back right. Immediately as you come in, down to our kitchen area, which doubles as our bar area during performance, because unfortunately don't have a separate bar area, and it has to be within the auditorium, which can delay the start of the shows occasionally. The auditorium itself is 18 metres in length by 5.8 metres wide. Stage area is 5.82 by 5.8. The rake seating has capacity for 50 seats. That pulls out, and there's usually further 3 seated rows of 8 on the floor. We've also got a fully equipped sound and lighting system up in the air.
What kind of performances have you been putting on?
The shows are quite varied here. We run a mixture of serious drama, comedy, pantomime, musical theatre.
You told me you've got Panto coming up later this year.
We have.
Do you do that every year?
We do when we can, yes. The pantomime last year had to move from December 22 to January 23 because of cast illness. It has virtually wiped us all out. That was Thumbelina. This year, December 2023, we're doing Aladdin, and there will be a naughty version for the adults in January 2024.
And so you said cast illness had wiped something out. Has that been your biggest challenge? What's been your biggest challenge since you've been working here at TADS? What's been the biggest?
I think one of the biggest challenges I've faced, and I speak here as the tech coming in, is the infrastructure was in place but needed additional bits putting in. So extra bars have gone in, extra sockets have gone in as we've moved through. Wiring's been renewed, all of that, so it's a bit more up to date. It's also quite it's a small space, but it's finding different ways of lighting it, because there were different ways we perhaps do the production. So while normally we'd be on the main stage, we have had a few that have been in the round, so in the area we're sitting has been the performance space. Last year we took that one step further and effectively built a railway station down the entire theatre when we did the Railway Children.
I was sitting in a local cafe actually, and all of a sudden, is it Victorian era that Railway Children? Or before? Edwardian. These Edwardian dressed children came in with leaflets talking about the performance. I think it was a promotional tactic.
That would have been my cast.
Yes.
They were with Claire, who was my co-director. The 3 that you had were a mixture of our Bobbies and Peters and Phyllis's.
So you put a railway track through the centre of where the audience would usually
Kind of, yeah. We basically, on either side, built a platform area with staging we borrowed from another group and did the same onto the stage. And effectively down the middle of the main auditorium bits was effectively a railway track area that, using particular type of staging, we could put some wheels on it. You effectively had the stage crew running up and down as a train.
Interestingly there, you said you borrowed some things from another group, and I'm interested in how, the amateur dramatics world in Central Bedfordshire is interconnected, and if there are any other local groups that you think are doing really important things in this field as well, that you are working with or you are interested in? Or?
The staging itself was borrowed from one of the Luton groups, because obviously heralding from Luton, I've got connections with certain of the Luton groups, one of which I am a member of as well. Within Central Bedfordshire, I can only speak for the ones I know of. Dunstable Rep regularly produce high quality productions throughout the year. They usually do 6 shows a year, I think it is. You've also got other groups such as Barton Players, use the Village Hall of Barton. Again, they're a NODA award-winning group. Same with Ampton and Flitwick Drama Society, AFDS, who often perform their shows here in Toddington, along with certain of the local theatre schools such as Parados, who've recently performed Frozen Junior.
And if you're a person listening who's never been to see a local performance production here at TADS or at any of the other places they could go and see them in Central Beds, what would you say to encourage somebody to start attending?
I would say just explore what's on, see what takes your fancy, because we all do different things. So it is a case of go and have a look. Particularly, this is no offence to the professional theatres, given the price of local theatre at the moment, cost of living, use the local theatre groups, because if you don't, we're not going to survive.
Yes.
Going back if you want an idea, one of the ones who came to see the Railway Children actually normally works in the West End in one of the orchestras. She was very complimentary about it. So while, yes, we are not professional, we're not paid to do this, there is some very good quality productions that go on locally, and I will go as far to say is one in particular that will probably be coming next year, which is the ACT Theatre Company, who do their shows at Dunstable Rep. They have the UK premiere, amateur premiere, of Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime.
Fabulous.
It is.
And so you were explaining that it's a volunteer role and lots of people are volunteering across the UK really to take part and keep these theatres going. What motivates you then? What keeps you interested?
For me, particularly, it's what I would call my autistic special interest, being on the autistic spectrum condition. I just enjoy the people I work with, the variety of productions, which, okay, not necessarily always to my liking, provide various challenges. I think for me, it's the more a director can challenge me to do something, the more I'm interested in it. When you're directing and technically directing the same show, it's even more of a challenge. I like variety. Certain, what I would call straight plays, are sometimes just lights on, lights off. But that in itself is a very good learning curve for somebody who just wants to get started under the watchful eye of somebody perhaps more experienced. And we certainly do, on the technical side, need a lot of input, because a lot of the ones who have come through from the schools have gone on to work professionally.
Yes.
So we do, as a local area, need quite a lot of younger technicians, and I know recently they've done an event, or are doing an event with NGYT over at Leighton Buzzard Library Theatre.
Yes. What are you a fan of? What's been your most favourite production to be involved in?
Oh, that's a tough one. And there might be a slight bit of bias on this one. I must admit, I was quite proud of the Railway Children.
Yes.
Although not a Shakespeare fan, I would also bring in Henry V. The other couple ones, personally, I was quite proud of, because I often work as producer for our first-time or younger directors, so perhaps those who are coming into their late teens, early 20s. But both Sherlock Holmes, which was directed by Chloe White, and The Accrington Pals, which was very, very tight staging. It was by Jenna Halsey.
If you could speak to a generation of young people who are interested in technical work in the theatre, and they might want a career in it, or they might want to try it out, what advice would you give?
Just go along and get involved, really. If you have an interest, particularly in electronics or in sound, even if perhaps you've done, say, music tech or are looking to do it at GCSE, get a few years' experience on the local Amdram circuit, perhaps before you decide if you're going on to university to do it. You will be welcomed, because we do need, it's practical experience. It gives you a chance to experiment, different setups. So sometimes you might just get sound effects, or like for musical theatre, you might end up mixing a load of radio mics with a 20-piece orchestra. To have that on your CV, going into the professional world,
great experience.
Is good experience. So I guess it is, if you have an interest either in theatre or just general electrics, sound, it's worth doing, because there are various careers that can go from that way.
So Paul, you were talking earlier about being on the autistic spectrum, and I imagine that allows you to bring lots of fantastic skills and positive difference to TADS Theatre. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, really?
It does. One of the factors I find, because I'm one of probably about half a dozen members that we know of that are on the autistic spectrum, it's sometimes a way of seeing things. You see solutions to problems that others may not consider. And because we're all, the few of us that are on the spectrum, we all have different characteristics. And yes, individually they can be weaknesses, but together you can find different ways.
And so people who may feel they have a difference, or they're on the autistic spectrum, just as you've described it yourself, that shouldn't be a barrier for them contacting a local theatre group and taking part.
No, it should never be a barrier to contacting a local theatre group, or even taking part. It's sometimes finding your niche within the group as to what you want to do, but also fitting into the wider factor. And I'll just use the example of one of our younger members here. When the person concerned joined us about a year ago, she was quite shy. She's still with us. She's in her element now. It is an encouragement. Word gets around, very diverse group. I think that is what keeps people here, is we are just accepting of how people are. It's the fact that people can be open about it here. We've not had to shield it. And it has been welcomed into the group.
That's great. I mean, I've been reading a lot of internet quotes that talk about local theatre, and they often describe a sense of family. That's very evident in what it is you're describing there.
I would second that. I mean, I've been a member now 20 years. Those that join us feel at home here within the group, which is one of those factors for amateur dramatics. If you can make everybody feel at home, word will get around, and it's a community. We are a community theatre group.
A final question for you is, if you had a magic wand and could do anything or something, any show or change anything here, at this theatre, what would you do?
Oh, the magic wand. Oh, show-wise, I've still got 3 or 4 on my bucket list, one of which I am going to be doing next year anyway. If it was big enough, I'd like to do Les Mis, but that's never going to happen. Me, what I would personally like to do is, and I say this as the technician, is I'd like to redo our entire lighting and sound grid so it was very modern, all new, brand new, very high spec LED kit, so obviously it's good for the environment, etc. That would be the magic wish, but unfortunately, unless you've got some large amount of funding,
you never
it's
know.
Not going to happen. But
someone listening might be keen.
Someone might. Even a spare 30,000 would go a long way, but I don't think anyone's got that change at the minute.
So contact Paul if you have £30,000.
Or more.
I would love to hear from you. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Paul.
I'm Naya. I'm 12 years old and I live in Central Bedfordshire.
And we're going out tonight to do what?
To go to TADS Theatre in Toddington.
It is an amateur theatre company. They're doing a production of Broadway Through the Ages. What do you understand about the term amateur?
Something to do with not professional, but volunteers and stuff.
So they're people who have been working really hard in their own time to come together to put on a performance for our community. You're absolutely right. Be honest, and do be honest. What are you expecting later?
Well, the hall, I've seen it before, it's a little bit small. And I think the chairs are extendable. But some of my friends go to that place, they do some acting there. And I have pretty high standards for there, to be honest.
Oh, really? Why?
Because my friends are there.
Okay. They're not there tonight, though.
No, but they go there, and I feel like, if they have the confidence to go there for that many years, that the people there must be very nice and very good at acting.
We'll see. Do you expect it to be as good as The Lion King in the West End, which you saw earlier this year?
About 50-50.
About 50-50.
Yeah.
Why do you think 50-50?
Because, as you said, they're amateurs. Those people that done it probably do it 3 times a week, every week, and they're professionals, they get paid to do it, all that stuff.
How do you feel about having a theatre in your local area? And the fact that you've never been to it before. Why have you never been, do you think?
I feel like it's very underrated. I mean, I haven't been there before, as you said, so I don't know for sure if it's underrated or not, but I've never heard anybody come to my school and say, oh look, I'm going to TADS Theatre tonight. And everyone will be like, yeah, they're great, that's a great experience, we love it there. Nobody's ever said anything like that.
Why do you think that people may not be going?
Because it's small.
So we're going to go there this evening, and then we're going to come back here and we're going to report back on our honest thoughts about going to the theatre, a local production done by volunteers and dedicated people for the first time ever for both of us. Okay. Thanks, Naya.
Okay, let's see how it goes.
See how it goes. Okay, so Naya, thank you for coming out on a mother-daughter theatre trip to TADS in Toddington. It is 10:30 at night. We've just come back from the first local theatre show we've ever seen, Broadway Through the Ages. What are your thoughts? What did you think?
I really liked it.
And so what did you think about all the different cast members coming together to create something like that?
I think it's lovely.
Why?
They practiced so much and they made such a beautiful performance.
I was quite emotional actually when it started, because I looked across at all the cast members and they were all sort of different backgrounds, different people from different places. They were all different abilities, and they were all coming together and they all had their part. And I thought that was really inclusive, and I thought it was really nice to see that everybody had a moment and a turn and their skills were best used. I thought that was really awesome. I thought the tiny space that they used so well was amazing. And what did you notice about the audience?
They were all cheery and they were very positive.
I noticed about the audience that there was a lot of friends and family there, which I think made it feel really sort of intimate. We even saw our next door neighbours. You saw your teachers. So it's a really sort of community focused event, isn't it? Because you bump into people that you already know. Did you notice that there was hardly any seats available, that the whole place was filled?
Yeah, it was packed.
Yeah, it was absolutely packed. And in what ways did you think it was similar to a West End show? And in what ways did you think it was different?
Well, I think that it was similar because of all the, nice singing and the dancing. I think it's different because obviously it's a smaller space. They don't have a lot of budget, like the microphones were squeaking. But even when the microphones were squeaking, they were perfectly on rhythm, like they wanted them to succeed.
Yeah, so there was just a bit of feedback sometimes on the mic, wasn't there? They'll probably iron that out before the next show.
I liked the lighting.
Why?
Because there was loads of different colours and shades, and the guys at the back put a lot of work into it.
What was really nice is just a short walk home. If people are living near a local theatre, why not go out and have a good time and then, just have your short walk back and, you have a really good feeling as you leave, don't you? You were talking about maybe being interested in, attending and getting involved. What made you feel that way?
It's just the amount of love that the cast got, and how creative they were and how musical they were. And literally nobody judged the actors if they were to accidentally mess up on their first try, for example. I think that kind of supportive community really makes you want to have a go.
Story Search, celebrating arts and culture across Central Bedfordshire.
I'm Angel, I'm 11 years old, and I started TADS Theatre last year, where I fell in love with it straight away once I'd done my first show there, Railway Children.
So Angel, thank you for joining us on our Story Search podcast, talking about Toddington and local theatre. So I'm going to ask you firstly, tell me, how did you get involved in local theatre?
I saw TADS Theatre from stage 1 and I was like, I want to join that, and I auditioned for Railway Children, where I got Phyllis, one of the sisters, and since then I've just fell in love with it. It's just normally a family community.
So we were talking with our other guests about the sort of how interconnected different theatre groups are in Central Bedfordshire. There was different names mentioned. Do they feel interconnected to you? Do you go between different groups? Is that how it works?
Yeah, I used to do NGYT, and now I do TADS and Parados. Parados has done a show, they've done Frozen with TADS, they've done it on the TADS stage.
So they rehearse in one space and use the theatre for the performances?
That's for Parados, yeah.
Well, that's nice, they've got that sort of link, that connection together, helping each other out. Does it feel like that, does it?
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of helping out, isn't there, that seems to be going on.
All the theatre groups stick together.
What is your favourite TADS memory?
Me playing Miss Worthington in TADS Teens performance in July. I loved doing that, and I dressed up as pink, and I love pink, so I was just literally pinked out.
So on the other hand then, that's all the fun stuff, but what's the most challenging aspect of being part of local theatre?
You have a certain amount of time to learn all your lines, and you get to that week and you're like, I still don't know them all. and then you have to like work as hard as you can to do it, and then the day before the show you forget all your lines.
Really? Is
Yeah.
that a common thing?
Yeah, because you're so nervous. And then you have to go through them all and you're like, oh, now I remember. Then you're petrified before you go on the stage. But then when you're on it, you're fine.
And something I noticed about the performance I just went to was that there was so many costume changes and lots of people just in and out. And I was just thinking, where are they all getting changed? If there's no backstage changing area, what's going on? It must be mad behind the scenes, isn't it?
Yeah. I think there's 3 curtains to share for all of you. And it's just so manic. Like, people are in the way of each other. And when you're like, move out the way, please, I'm on stage in a minute. They're like, hang on, I'm just doing my makeup. So, even if it's from the first show that you've done to the last, they just feel like you've known them for ages.
It doesn't matter if you're still learning, you've still got a
Yeah.
part to play in it. Sometimes, like at school or even for grown-ups in the workplace, it can feel like there's little groups of people and not everybody's always coming together. But it's not like that at theatre. No, that's really cool. When I was talking to David, he felt that sometimes young people don't get involved in the theatre because there's lots of distractions, in particular phones, social media, computers and things like that. But it sounds to me like you're a young person that doesn't have much time for all of those distractions because you've got all this to focus on. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what would you say to somebody that's maybe spends all their time on their phone after school just watching YouTube videos and things like that? Like, what would you say if they were feeling like, you know what, I want to do a bit of something else and actually meet people in real life? How would you encourage them to rock up at TADS?
I would tell them, try it, you might like it. Another thing, people that do want to join like theatre, even if they're a bit scared to not really want to do the acting side of things and not really want to go on stage, there are loads of different backstage things, like you can be a stage manager, stage crew, where you move all the props and get everything ready. And then you also have the technical side of it. Well, during Thumbelina, the last year's pantomime, when we auditioned, the person directing it goes to my mum, oh, do you want to audition too? My mum goes, oh, I'm just here to take Angel and I'm going now. And I was like, no, Mum, you do it. So that's how my mum got involved as well.
Story Search, Central Bedfordshire.
Hi, my name's Gemma. I'm a member of TADS Theatre. I've recently taken on the role of treasurer, and I will be appearing in my second show with them in December. My daughter Angel is also a member of TADS Theatre, and it's a great hobby that we share together. I'm very proud.
Why is it that you thought, I'd like to get my daughter involved in theatre in general?
So during COVID, we found an online class that was running. That was via NGYT, who you mentioned earlier. And she just got a buzz during COVID. Oh, I really enjoy doing this. Yeah. And I just want to, as her mum, I want to help facilitate that hobby and give her the opportunity so that if she does decide to do something with it in the future, this experience will maybe benefit her. When I got embroiled in taking part also, I realised that I was quite a novice and how much she'd learnt during the Railway Children, which I wasn't involved with. You know, I was dropping off, picking up, watching the show. And they're things that hopefully if she decides, you know, to do drama or something at school, she's got that. I've gone to watch things with TADS and some of the other local groups that I would never have watched if a local group wasn't doing it. But I've gone either to support people or just support the group and been blown away by some of the fantastic performances that I've seen.
Did you find it quite emotional? Because I did.
Yes.
I didn't even have a friend or a connection in the cast.
Yeah. Now I've done a show with them. When a show finishes, that's really emotional as well. Like, you come off the last one, you cry and you think, all that work and all that buzz, you know, the friends that you've made, you feel like it's all over. Because I certainly had lots of wobbles with confidence, and the rest of the team were always like, come on, you can do this, you're all amazing, don't worry. And that's wonderful, because people are telling you that you can do something that you don't believe you can do. But
I noticed from the programme that I was reading when I went to see Broadway Through the Ages that there's a real mixture of different levels of theatre experience. I saw some people with children, they'd not done much with the theatre company before. Somebody was an ex-Pontins Bluecoat and had been a bit practised at singing. And then another person, used to work in the West End, and I guess that they just didn't want that life anymore, and but they still want to stay involved. So there's a whole range of different levels of talent that people are growing from, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that that's great as well, because I see that we can all learn from each other. And then there's little old me who just sits in an IT department, thinking, oh my goodness, I'm out of my comfort zone. Yeah. But these people are all amazing and just help encourage you. TADS is very inclusive, I would say. I think you touched on it earlier. Yeah. It's open to anyone who, whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter.
Anyone who wants to do a bit of hard work.
Yeah.
So Cassandra, here we are. We've been to Toddington, and I really feel like I've had some of my assumptions challenged by some of the stories that you've shared. It's been really very interesting. How has it been for you?
It has been a journey into a world I didn't really know very much about. I've never had any engagement in theatre, local theatre before, theatre in general really. And it was really interesting meeting some of these wonderful characters, so many different people from different walks of life. I loved meeting different generations of people as well. I've learnt a lot about my local area, about the things that go on in it, and I'm really looking forward to sharing that with the rest of the community. What assumptions did you have then that were challenged?
Well, I have to admit, it was a little bit allergic to the idea of Amdram performances, right. and actually what I've realised is I just thought they weren't for me because I might not want to be on the stage, and I assumed that the whole of the audience would be friends of the people on the stage. And I think when I was listening to all of the guests, what I realised is they're friendly, but it's not cliquey. It's inclusive and it's welcoming. And we the non-actors or the non-producers or people who aren't actively involved in putting it on would be really welcomed there. Is that how you found when you went with Naya?
It was lovely going with Naya actually, and I realised different things, which is perhaps we could do more things like that together, just mum and daughter, because we don't do enough of those things, and it sort of opened up an option for us. And I know that she is very keen. She has a ticket front row for Aladdin, their panto that they're doing this December 2023.
It's just wonderful. And I think what you've just mentioned about you and your daughter, that goes all the way through, doesn't it? It's the relationship building. So we had David who, I loved his story of women wanted, and then he got his woman, Gemma and Angel were talking about how it was a time for them to spend together. It feels like it adds a real kind of level of depth to connection, which is wonderful, really.
And I really hope the wider community can support that, because I just got this sense when I walked away that it would be such a loss if anything happened to this place. And yet when I talk to people, maybe not inside Toddington but outside of it, they have no idea that the theatre is there. So it's really important that we spread the word on that, I think.
So what would you say to your neighbours about TADS Theatre?
Well, my neighbours are one of the people I actually met there when I went, and I walked home with them, and it was lovely to bump into them there. So it's kind of a nice village community. I'm new to village life, and so it was a nice aspect to just bump into your neighbour when you get there. But for those that don't go, for the people that live around that could go, I just think it's a reasonably priced, fun time. And I really think that you're missing something if you're not giving back to the community in that way, when hopefully the community gives to us all. It's just a really nice thing to do to support others who are trying their best, trying something new, being braver than I could be, getting out of their comfort zone and giving something new a go. I'm not that brave, and I'm so proud of them for what they're doing.
A few people mentioned, I think Gemma, Angel's mum, and Paul, if I remember rightly, mentioned about being able to see theatre for a really reasonable amount of money on your doorstep. Being able to see things that are very low risk, very low financial risk. You might see Shakespeare or a musical or something that might cost you hundreds of pounds to see in the West End. Remind me how much the tickets were.
I'd have to look it up.
Don't worry about it.
But I do know I wanted tickets to MJ the musical in the West End this March. And the seats that looked good were £127 per person. This was not £127 per person. I think it's less than £10 each. Not only that, but there's such a personal touch when you walk in there. People are welcoming. They're running a little raffle. There's a bar, where you can just stop and say hello to people. And they're an integral part of everything. People turn their hand to any job that needs doing. And really, that's the definition of a team. Nobody sits down until it's all done. And I think the lady that served me a Coca-Cola when I arrived was also the lady running the show, the director, or the person in charge of the entire theatre company. I thought that was awesome.
And Paul was similar, wasn't he? When he was describing what he did, that was a sentence. That was quite a long sentence of what he did. Because it's all hands on deck, isn't it?
And interestingly, we were very blessed to have Paul share with us about his neurodiversity, and that is a message to all parents of children who are neurodiverse. This might be something that your child can feel part of, or adults who are struggling to find where their skills fit in. As Paul was explaining, it's a great place for you to bring yourself, your full self, and be yourself and get involved. So that was really great that he would share that with us, something so personal.
I agree. And I think you guys, yourself and Naya, going along as audience, local audience, is really important. And, that's probably something that if we have any voice or sway, we would be encouraging people to just buy a ticket, take a risk, go and have a nice lemonade or a glass of wine and watch something that you wouldn't have watched.
Because
otherwise.
I'm not that brave to take part, and I might not even have the time to take part because I work and I'm a parent and I volunteer with other things in different ways. But the one thing I can do is at least once a year buy a ticket, shuffle along, have a nice time and go home again. And if that's all I can contribute, I think that will do.
Yeah, and what a nice way to contribute. Yeah. Lovely. Okay, so thank you so much for taking us to Toddington. You're actually taking us to our next location as well. So I understand that we are going to Leighton Buzzard.
We are going to Leighton Buzzard because of a fantastic author called Mary Norton. Mary Norton won the Carnegie Medal for her famous piece of children's literature called The Borrowers, which became a Hollywood film. Lots of people have seen it and enjoyed it. Big stars were in the movie, but of course before the movie came the book, and Leighton Buzzard is the home of Mary Norton, the home of The Borrowers, and we are going to be talking to a variety again of fantastic guests, from experts in children's literature through to children that actually go to school in the building where Mary Norton once lived and wrote the book. And the building, we believe, is the basis of where those characters would have lived in Mary Norton's mind. It is now a school, and hopefully we are engaging those children in some discussions around the book and what it might be like to be a borrower.
That's so interesting, and I cannot wait. So we are going to learn about being a borrower in terms of recycling things, in terms of getting books out of libraries. There's so many ways this links, and to have it all in Central Bedfordshire is wild, really, isn't it?
It's fantastic, and there's some really great themes within our discussions for Leighton Buzzard. themes around repurposing and recycling, which we think is a new idea. No, borrowers did it first. But also this idea of living in a way that is confined, where we cannot leave our homes, which is something that a lot of us have been through lately over the past few years. And, you know, Mary Norton describes that idea of being confined and living in close quarters with somebody and our families and not being able to get out. I think there's lots of reasons people should read The Borrowers or listen to The Borrowers in an audiobook before we visit in our next episode.
Wonderful. Well, I will have to, because I haven't read it. So I'm looking forward to going to Leighton Buzzard.
I always look forward to going to Leighton Buzzard. See you there.
See you there.
It's really something, the treasures all around us we might find, left all around me is a secret shrouded by a veil of time. I'll share it with you, 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 I'll share it.